January at some point.
Oh, well, okay. We miss you. You know
I
that.
know. I miss
Okay.
being here, but it's so cold in the winter.
New Orleans is warmer.
Yeah, and I live with my parents here, so I can't really afford rent anywhere else. It's easier to just fly back and forth to get a break.
I hear you.
You
Okay. Okay. Good morning. We are on Lamed Dalet Amin Aleph. We are on 34A. Most probably it's 34A1. Tana Rabbanan. 4 lines from the top. Arvei Nachal. So we have a brisa that says the following. The pasuk says we're talking about the aravot, the willows that we use in our lulav. The Torah says arvi nachal. But the Gemara says hagdelot ala nachal. That when it says ala nachal, that means it should be something that grows by a brook, and therefore this opinion says it's prat v'satsefa hagdela ben aharon. This comes to exclude the sapsifa, a specific type of willow that grows by the mountains. And what we said, we're not excluding all other types of willows that don't grow by a brook, right? We're being very specific to exclude a specific type of willow that grows by the mountains. And because the Gemara is going to identify the sassifa, that it's very different than the regular characteristics of a regular willow. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Zera, Rav Zera says, Micro, where, which pasuk do we see? Do we see in Tanakh that the sassifa, this type of, that grows by the mountains, do they have an English translation for the sassifa? Sassifa is they translated, they don't just say sassifa. Do we see that this is something, there's something inferior about this willow, that it should not be kosher for the lulav? Meaning we have, because we're going to say we're out of the bunch, we're picking out, we're excluding this particular species. We are including other species. We said we including the ones that grow by the rainwater in the fields, and we even allowed, which other ones did we allow? We even going to allow some that grow by the mountains, but this specific one, we said that we are excluding this specific type. There's something obviously negative about this sassafra. So where do we see that this is something negative about this sassafra? There's something different about this. Morning, Simon. Welcome back. So the Gemara says we can learn this from the fact, amen, in the Navi in Yecheskel, that there was a rebuke to the Jewish people, that that the Jewish people went down in level. They went sour. But it says koch al mayim rabim, the tree that was rooted and grew with a lot of water, which is symbolic of the arava, the willow, became safsafa samo. They became safsafa. That means that they went down in level. That's the rebuke of the Navi. The rebuke of the Navi is that he's rebuking the people. You used to be a certain level of people, a certain level of stature of goodness, of greatness, of righteousness, and you know what? You were once a You were once like an arava. You were once a koch hamayim rabim. You once were rooted and grew on with a lot of water. And now, what happened to you? Safsifa samo. Instead of being that type of a type of great, bless you, type of quality uh, uh, people, you became a safsifa. You went sour. You went bad. So we see from the pasuk that safsifa is something negative, that you went, that it's going down in stature. So the Gemara says, Amalei Abaye, the Abaye says, we are on 34a 1. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says on the bottom of the first column, Amalei Abaye, Vidila Purusha Kamafaresh. Maybe the pasuk is explaining the beginning. That means maybe the pasuk is saying, Kach Amayim Rabim, a tree that was rooted and grew with a lot of water. Manu, what tree are we referring to? Safsafa. It's maybe the pasuk is just saying, Kachamayim Rabim, tree that grew by a lot of water. Safsafa. That's a safsafa. And the pasuk is just identifying a tree that grows by a lot of water, which would indicate that safsafa is a very good thing. Something that grows by a lot of water means it has a lot of nourishment, it has a lot of strength. So how do we know that it means that it's going from going from a high level, something that grew by a lot of water, to a lower level? Maybe it's all discussing something that's on a good level. Maybe it's just explaining something that's something that grows by a lot of, maybe it's talking about something that grows by a lot of water, and it identifies it by saying sassafra, by saying sassafra. That's a sassafra. Because really, it's interesting to note that Rashi in Yecheskel explains the pasuk is referring to the king Sitkiyahu, that his kingship, his ruleship, was so great, was so strong, so great. It was like a seed that was planted and took root by a lot of water, and like a sassafra, which has a lot of branches. So according to this pshat in the pasuk, the way Rashi learns in Yecheskel, really sassafra is really identifying, and it's a positive thing. It's saying that his kingship was very strong, and sassafra was just describing the positive aspect. But the Gemara is learning, the Gemara is darshaning, expounding that sassafra is a lower down of the level. Now, how do we know it's not explaining the first part of the pasuk? So the Gemara says, "Im came my samo." Why does the pasuk say sassafra samo? Sassafra samo means it was placed as a sassafra, means it went to a different category, different level. So the pasuk could have just said kachamayim rab sassafra. If it's talking about something, identifying something that grows by a lot of water, it should have just said kacham, something that grows by a lot of water, sassafra. By saying the word samo, it was placed. Sounds like it was placed. It was changed status from being something that grows by a lot of water to something that no longer has that quality. Okay, Amar Abavu. Abavu says. Now, he says, Amar Kodesh Baruch Hu. Hashem says the following: Ani amarti shu Yisrael lefanai kekach al mayim rabim. I said that the Jewish people should be in front of me like a tree that grows by a lot of water. What does that mean? That the Jewish people should grow beautifully. They should be prosperous, right? So he's translating now. Now we're translating it. It means not that you were great and you went sour. I want you to be great. I told you, Kacha Mayim Rabim. I said, this is how the Masifta Gemara is translating it. I told you I wanted you to be I wanted you to flourish. I wanted you to grow. Arava. I wanted you to be like an arava. I want you to be like a willow, growing beautifully, because you have so much water. The normal willow is arvi nachal, has the brook, it has the moisture from there. But vehein samu atzmo, but they made themselves like a safsafa shebaharim. They made themselves like the safsafa. They made themselves like a item that does not grow so beautifully, does not have all that water. That's by the mountains, but not near the water. So that's that. It's interesting that the Chassam Sofer says, Hashem says that even the kekach, even the empty Jews that don't have the mitzvot, like the aravot has no taste and no smell. So even those Jews that don't have those qualities of mitzvot or maasim tovim, or Torah and maasim tovim, I wanted them to be mayim rabim. I wanted them to be connected and to the leaders of the generation, and to grow from them. But instead of them going, instead of them taking advantage and growing from the great leaders of the Jewish community, what happened was they made themselves like a sassafra. They made themselves like sassafra, not growing by the water. They stayed away from the great leaders of the Jewish community, the great chachamim, and instead, what did they do? They went ahead and they made poke fun at the leaders of the prophets and the leaders of the Jewish people. Some have that the pasuk that we just brought, was actually not brought by Rab Zera like we had in the Gemara, was actually part of the Braita, of the Braita that we brought before. Rabim, Safsafa Samo, meaning the Brisa we said, we had the Brisa before. The Brisa says, Panarabanan, that was the Brisa we started today, 4 or 5 lines from the top. The Arve Nachal that we said that grow by the brook, what comes to exclude, the Brisa said, it's excluding the Safsafa. The Safsafa that grow, this type of willow, which we said is the leaves, Simon, are round. Instead of the leaves being narrow and long and like going like that, instead of going like this, the leaves are more like wide and round. So that's not, and there's other characteristics we're going to see. Maybe the stem is white, and we're going to see some other characteristics. Safsafa, it's white, and it's not. We're going to see in a minute more how we define the Safsafa. So some say that when the Braita said that we're excluding the Safsafa, that Braita brings the pasuk. Not that the later rabbi, the Amora, brings the pasuk. The Braita brings the pasuk. Eid madam Braita. Kach amayim rabim Safsafa samo. That and it proves, the Braita shows you that the Safsafa is an inferior quality. It's not the real deal, and it brings the pasuk from Yecheskel, which shows you that it went down, that it's not a good thing, the Safsafa. It's the rebuke of the Navi, of the prophet to the Jewish people. You, the Jewish people, were supposed to grow like an arava, supposed to grow so beautifully, like you see those beautiful willow trees that grow by the brook, and instead you went ahead and you became a Safsafa. You went down. So, that the Braita itself says this brings the source of Chachamayim Rabim, where the pasuk indicates that the Jewish people went down in level, and therefore it shows you that Safsafa is something that's a lower quality. Maskef Rav Zera, so Rav Zera in that text, in that version of the Braita, so on that the Amora Rav Zera asked the question: the Duma Perusha Kamafarish. Maybe it's explaining. Maybe the pasuk doesn't mean that Safsafa is negative, maybe inferior, maybe it's explaining Kachamayim Rabim, something that grows by a lot of water, maybe it's referring to, it's a positive thing. It's just a repeat of the Gemara before, but in a different version. That instead of having it as an Amora bringing the pasuk, it's in the Braita. And then the Gemara says, "Im kain my samo." So why does it say samo? The fact that it says samo means that it went down. It was placed. Something was placed from one level, and it became something else. Which means the Jewish people were originally supposed to be like the Arava, and instead they were Sapsifa. They became the Sapsifa. They became the quality. They went down. They weren't keeping the Torah and the mitzvot, and therefore and to indicate the lowering of the level of the Jewish community, the Navi, the prophet, uses the analogy by saying that you became a Sapsifa. You went from something that was supposed to grow beautifully, and instead, look what you turned out to be. You grew like the Sapsifa. Is that clear? Therefore, it's a rebuke on the people. Amar Abavu, and that's what Abavu says. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. God said, Ani Omarti. I, God said, Shiyu Yisrael Lefanai Kikocha Mayim Rabim. I wanted that the Jewish people should be prosperous, should be great, should have everything. I want them to be like the willow that grows by a lot of water, by Arvei Nachal, and have Manihu Arava. I want them to be like an Arava. But they, the Jewish community, instead of fulfilling what I wanted them to be, I'm looking to give them all the blessings. God wants us to be successful, but what did they do? They chose the wrong path. They decided to do the wrong thing in life. They made themselves like the Safsafa. They are the cause of their own downfall, that they should not be getting the blessing that they should go ahead and get. That's because of their actions, and that's why they turned into a Safsafa. Hashem has beautiful things in store for us, wants beautiful things for us, just like a parent wants beautiful things for the child, but the child has to be able to earn it, to get that blessing from their father. Tana Rabbanan. Now, the Gemara is going to identify the character traits of the Sapsafa, which is not kosher, for Arava, and the character traits of a Arava. Arava, a willow that the Torah says that you're supposed to use, is koneh, its stem, the stick of the, right? Here's the stick of the Arava. We got the koneh is the stick. Now you see, look at this stick. You see it's nice, it's green. The stick is green. And you see it's not it's smooth. The leaf is smooth. It's flat, smooth. You could run your fingernail, and your fingernail won't get caught in the leaf. You run it across the leaf. It's not serrated, so it's red. Ala shala edom. It is red. 1 second. Kana shala, the stem is red. Ala shala mashuch, and the leaf is long and narrow. Right? The night. The Hadassah leaf is not long, it's short, right? But this is a longer leaf. It's long, but it's narrow. It's not wide, right? You see the leaf is not wide, it's long and narrow. Upiha, and the edges are chalak, are smooth. You run your hand across, you run your nail across, it doesn't get stuck. By the way, by a shchita, by a knife that's used for slaughtering an animal or a bird, there can't be any, it has to be smooth, the knife. The blade has to be smooth. There can't be any nicks in the knife. And one of the things that they check is that the shochet, before he slaughters, he runs when he begins his day, he will run his fingernail across, on the knife to see if the fingernail gets caught in anything. If it gets caught in anything, then it will go ahead and be invalid, because that means there's a nick in the knife. That's one of the things that he will do to check. So with safsafa, but the safsafa, it's kanashalo lavan. Its stem is not red; it's white. The wood is white, the Allah Shila Ego, and its leaf is round. Instead of being narrow and long, it is round. It's rounded. And also piha, and its edges is domer lemagal. It's similar to a sickle, that it's serrated. It's not a smooth edge on the leaf. The leaf is not smooth like this. If you will run your fingernail across the leaf of a sapsifa, you will see that it is serrated. You'll see that it has nicks in the arava. So those are the three character traits of sapsifa. The magal is the instrument, the sickle that they use to cut grain, because it has it's serrated, it cuts the grain like teeth. So the Gemara says, but Tanya, we learned in a Braita, we have a Braita that says that if the leaf, if the edges of the leaf are domala magal, that it's similar to a sickle, that it's serrated like a sickle, that it is kosher. We said that such a leaf is still kosher for a ravat. You just told me that a leaf of an arava is when it has to be smooth. And here we see that it could even be similar. Good morning. Yeah, we could even be similar to a sickle, that it's not smooth. So the Gemara says, and again, the Braita says, Domala magal, if it's similar to a magal, to that sickle, it's kosher. It is kosher. Domala masar, but if it's similar to a masar is a knife that they call maybe a saw, similar to a saw, which the Rambam learns that the magal, it's serrated, is not as deep. It's much more smaller. It's smaller, the indentation than the saw. The saw is much deeper, and it says if it's small, if the nicks are much smaller, then it is kosher. But if the nicks are larger, then it would be invalid. You see, it says over here. It says over here. So we have, you know, the ridges. How much are the ridges large, or the ridges, that spacing in between, and how deep it is? Is it large, or is it smaller ridges? So the saw is larger ridges than the sickle, smaller ridges. So therefore, it's not such a deep, nicks. Smaller little spaces. How deep the space is, and we say that if it doesn't have such deep nicks, it is kosher. But you just told me a moment ago that it has to be smooth. But if it's like a sickle, that it's serrated a certain amount, has some ridges. Maybe the ridges are small; they're not as far in like as a saw. But you just told me that it has to be. Good morning, Boker Tov. You told me that it has to be, that it can't be serrated so much. Again, you told me it can't be serrated at all. And now we're saying that if it's similar to a maga, which is small, the ridges are small, you told me it's still you told me it's good. Again, the Rambam is saying, the blade of a sickle has smaller ridges than that of a saw. Okay? And it says here that if it's smaller ridges, it is kosher. But beforehand, you told me it has to be smooth. But if it's small ridges, it's not smooth. It might be small ridges, but it's not smooth. So that's the Gemara's question. So the Gemara answers, the Gemara says the following. Abaye says, Kitanyahi, that which we said that it's kosher, even though the small ridges, that's talking about a chilfa gila. A chilfa gila is a certain type, it's part of the arava family. It's unique that it has small ridges, but the stem is red. The leaves are long and narrow. They have the other two qualities of an arava. So we're saying you don't need all three qualities of an arava. If you, as long as you have the other two qualities, that it's red and it's narrow, the narrow and long the leaves, even though it is what? It has these small ridges, it is still considered the arava family. It's part of the arava. It's part of the arava family, and therefore we um, we could use that for sukkot. It's, and that's what the Gemara says. Abaye. So Abaye says Shma Mina Hai Chilfa Gila Kashal Hoshana. So we see that the fact that the Breita says that if you have a willow that's similar to a magal, similar to a sickle that has these small ridges, it is kosher. So we see that from that Breita, the fact that the Breita says that if it has small ridges, it's kosher. So we see from there that Hai Chilfa Gila Kosher Loshana. We see from the Breita that a Chilfa Gila, which is Chilfa Gila, is this willow that has this small ridges and has long leaves, long and narrow leaves, and it's red. So we see from the Breita that's kosher. Because if the Breita said that if you have something, a willow that's similar to a masar, similar to a sickle, it's kosher. And we're saying a sickle is small ridges, and the only one that would fit that would be that bill, that it could be kosher, that has the other two qualities, positive qualities, is the chilfa gila. So therefore, Baye says, if the Breita says that if it has similar to a sickle, small ridges is good, it has to be the chilfa gila is the only thing that would fit that bill that has small ridges, but it has the other positive qualities of, again, there's three positive qualities of a rava. It has it's smooth, it's no ridges, and yet it's red, the stem, and it's long and narrow, the leaves. And now we're saying, the Breita is saying you don't even need all three. You can, as long as you have two of the three, it's good. The only thing that we find that has that is the chilfa gila. So therefore, the chilfa gila is kosher. Chilfa gila kosher lashana. So the Gemara says pshita. It's obvious. There's no other one. There's no other thing that fits that bill of something that has that ridges similar to a sickle, small ridges, and yet has the other two qualities. It's only the chilfa gila. So what is the Baye telling us? That, you know what, a chilfa gila is kosher. It's obvious from the Breita that chilfa gila is kosher. Because if the Breita says that it could be with small ridges, it's kosher, the only thing that fits, good morning, Mr. Shooter, the only thing that fits that bill is the chilfa gila. So the Gemara says the following: we are discussing about aravot on Sukkot. We're always looking forward to the holidays, right? And we're talking about arava. So the Gemara says that a chilfa gila, a certain type of arava that's called a chilfa gila, is a kosher arava. So the Gemara says, chilfa, by the way, is another name for an arava. It's another way to refer to an arava. But it's not just called arava. It has two names to it. It's called arava, chilfa gila. So the fact that it has a second name to the arava, the mao de tema, the fact that it's known by another name, a second name, you might think lunis kasher. Maybe that's not kosher for arava, because an arava, you might have said, is something that's known, it's one type of species that has known by it. It's called arava. It's called a willow, but this is not called just arava. This is called an arava gila. So the fact that it's known by a different name, maybe it's something that's not part of the Arava family. You know, if you call something an Arava, okay, the fact that it most probably it's called that way, it's known that way, that's most probably what the Torah refers to, Muni Akiva. That's what the Torah refers to when the Torah says Arava, Arava, Arve Nachal, right? The Torah said, identifies Arava by something that grows by a brook. And the Gemara says, even if it's not going to grow by a brook, it's still kosher, but it's called an Arava. But the fact that this is called something else, it has a second name to it. It's called Arava Gila. I might have said that it's not kosher for the Arava. I might have said it's a different, if it's not Arava of the Torah. So the Gemara says, Kamash Malon, that's what he's coming to teach us. He's coming to teach us, Abaye is coming to teach us that even though this is called Arava Gila, it's still, this is the Arava of the Torah. And therefore you can use this Arava. And what's unique about this Arava is that it has the red stem. That Arava is supposed to have a red stem. Like we have over here, we got the Arava, you got the red stem. And also the leaves are long and narrow. We said that the leaves of an Arava are not supposed to be wide leaves. It's long and narrow, but it doesn't, even though the Arava leaf, it's another quality that it's also smooth, that there's no ridges, there's no nicks, and it's a smooth leaf. But this leaf, it's not, it has little ridges, it's little nicks in the leaf, but this one is still kosher. So the Gemara says, but maybe it's not kosher. Maybe, how do you know if it's known as something else? It's not known as just an Arava. It's called Arava Gila. So maybe it's not, something called Coke. It's called Diet Coke. Diet Coke is not Coke. It's a different type of Coke. Is it Coke? Is it not Coke? Is it the same Coke? How do you identify it? So this has another name to it. This is called Arava Gila. Is it the same or it's not the same? So the Gemara says, how do you know that this is also included in the category of Aravot? Morning, Isaac. So the Gemara says, Arve Nachal Rachmana. The Torah says Arve Nachal. Arve is plural. Morning. Our plural is coming to Mikom. The use of using Arve, it said Arav Nachal, but this is the singular language. But the fact that it says Arve is coming to include there are multiple types of willows that are kosher. Not just the willow that's the traditional, the Coke willow we'll call it, but even the Diet Coke is also, it's not called Coke, it's called Diet Coke, or has some other name, but maybe we have, that's what the Torah is coming to say, that Arava Gila is also kosher. Yes. Yeah, that's one way you could Arvei Nachal, you can interpret Arvei means you have to have two, like we take plural, like Simon says. Arvei means you have to take two Aravot. You don't just take one Arava, but there's another way to say Arvei is not referring to the amount of Aravot, but rather that there are different types of Aravot, different types of willows. That's what we're gonna end today. So we have multiple willows that we could take for the Aravot. We have the willow called the standard willow that we know, and we also have another willow that's called the Safsafa willow that we can't use. But this willow, which is which we call the Chilfa Gilo willow, that Arava, we can use because the Torah is including other types of willows in addition to the standard Coke classic willow. The other willow is also the Diet Coke willow, so to speak, is also able to be used for the Arava. I want to wish everyone, thank you for joining. Every second counts, everybody. Every word is another mitzvah. Yeah. Look at the red stem. See the red stem? Okay. Willow in English, yes. And that's also, this is a willow, but the Gemara says there's another type of willow. See, this is myrtle. This is hadassim, myrtle. That's the willow. But the Gemara says there's another type of willow that it's not so smooth on the edge. See, this is smooth, and that's also kosher. See, it's smooth. You can run your finger across, doesn't get caught.